Welcome to the Holy Spirit's Curriculum of Joy podcast. My name is Wanaka Oberhuber, and my guest today is Tim Cliss. Hi.
Hi, Wanaka.
So wonderful to have you here, a
Oh,
fellow
thanks.
writer and speaker.
Yeah,
Yeah. And we've been, I've listened to some of what you have shared on YouTube, and I'm really happy to have you here. So,
yeah, thanks. I'm happy to be here.
so I'd like to get an idea of where you are at from your view of the world or the not world, whatever, and then get a feel for how you got to this place where you are at now,
Mm,
if you'd like to share about that.
yeah. As I said to you before we started, I'm always wary of sharing the story because one of the most obvious things is that it's just a story. Um, and really, all we have to share is stories. That's all sharing is storytelling. But you asked
Yeah,
me, so I'll tell you a story.
wonderful. Yeah,
So,
I you know that I called myself storyteller for a while, so
well,
this
yeah,
was perfect.
you and everyone else.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so Tim's story. Where do you start? Um, so just on a practical level, I was a teacher, a secondary school teacher, PE teacher, games teacher. Um, and whilst I was away taking some 11 and 12-year-olds on a school camp to Derbyshire, which is a national park in the UK. Um, we were hiking, and I had about 30 kids with me, and I'm leading them through these woods up a hill. It's like a rocky tour, so there's the trees are growing out of the rocks, and it was it was whilst I was walking, time stopped, and there was just this overwhelming sense of oneness. And it was as if this was me making sense of it afterwards. It was as if I was the rocks and the trees, and the trees and the rocks were me. And there was absolutely, they knew me, I knew them. There was no, there was simply no division at all. Um, that didn't last any time at all. And yet from that moment, from that experience in the story, I was obsessed with finding out what that was, what had happened, what did it mean? Did it mean anything? Who else had had experiences like it? Was this unique, or was there, or could I find others who could make sense of it for me? And then you could say I became a seeker after that. I will say I'd always been a seeker. I always wanted to know the truth. Um, my mother was always saying to me that I was the most annoying child because, like a lot of children, they want to know why, always asking why. Give me an explanation. I always wanted to know why. And yeah, I became quite addicted to trying to find out who else had had experiences like this. And so I didn't feel quite so alone with it, because one of the key elements of that awakening experience was that there could not be anything outside of what that was showing, what was revealed. It was utterly alone, one only. So that's a short story. And then it wasn't until much later, probably 10 years later, I really looked in psychology originally. I was a psychological seeker to find the answer to what happened. And I did look in spirituality, but it just didn't feel like a spiritual experience. There you go. That's really, it was too direct and real. That's how it felt. But then I found non-duality, and then I was an obsessive non-dual. I was consuming every non-duality book and as many videos as I could watch in an evening for years. Is that enough background?
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Anyways, to see how this experience led to non-duality. I love it.
Well, it was. I mean, when I first heard non-duality, I understood it made perfect sense what non-duality. It seemed like, oh yeah, that seems like a good term for what had been, for want of a better word, for what had been seen, for what had been, because at the time it felt like a revelation. That's a good spiritual word, isn't it? Because it was like the veil had been drawn back, the curtains had drawn back. Yeah,
that's beautiful. And of course, the Miracles one also speaks about revelation. So it's
but I will say, word. Yeah, I will say, to put a dampener on it, that was when I was about 34. And I will say, you know, the seeking, the sense of me being able to find out what that meant and what the truth was. I mean, to put a dampener on the whole story is that I never found out what the truth was, because it seems very obvious now that there is no possibility of knowing the truth.
Yeah, other than if you are the truth, right?
That is a mystery, you could say, that is not knowable. And that's, I mean, in non-duality, you tend to use the word liberation rather than enlightenment or awakening. But the liberation was the liberation from that incessant, dreadful need to find out the truth, to know. That seemingly stopped, it died. And then there was just simply life as it is, which was not what I was hoping for.
Yeah, I understand that.
Because I was hoping for something spectacular. And what I now speak of, in a way, I mean, I've told you that awakening experience because that seemingly in the story was the catalyst for all the seeking. But it's of no, I've told you that, but it's really of no significance at all, because essentially nothing is of any significance in the past that seems to have been a causal factor, you know, in terms of cause and effect. I can tell the story of cause and effect, you know, that did seemingly, it was the catalyst for all my seeking. But when I say that, it doesn't feel genuine because it's just a story.
Yeah, that's a good point to make, you know, about stories.
Yeah,
They are powerful in themselves, but they
yeah,
still are stories.
yeah,
They're pointing
exactly.
at something that has nothing to do with the story itself.
Yeah, yeah,
Just like our lives are pointing to the oneness or to the non-dual, perhaps, right? But we are, but our lives are not non-dual in the way they are living themselves out, right? The story.
yeah. Well, I mean, the words just don't mean anything. That's the thing. The stories don't mean anything. They can.
Yeah.
This is utterly complete and whole life as it is, with or without the story. The stories are, you know, window dressing. They're and they're beautiful as they are, but they don't. The problem with storytelling is that self, me, can hold them so dear that, you know, that they have great significance and they are important and they do mean something. And it can be incredibly disappointing to know that you don't have to know. It's just when they are just stories, it can feel devastating. You know, it is like finding out, you know, when you found out that Father Christmas, Santa Claus wasn't real. It's that kind of devastation.
Yeah, that's a good description because every or not every, yeah, most people are everyone probably has went through the story of wanting to have something happen so that they could be happy, right? And
Yeah,
so to
yeah,
find out that happiness was there all along and they didn't
yeah,
need to do anything about that, I can imagine that can have a moment of devastation, of utter devastation. Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, one of the most devastating is that that there can be happiness, but that I can't be happy. Happiness is not for me.
It's not
Ha-
part of, it's not the story, right? That makes you
happen
happy.
the story goes that I'm happy or I'm sad. Whereas how it really is sadness appears, happiness appears, sorrow appears, anger appears, and disappears. And they're not for you. You don't have them. They're not mine or yours.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that description. Thank you, Tim.
Well, yeah, that wasn't the full story. I mean, it's funny. You know, stories are not true when in the retelling of every story of your life, or it always comes out differently, doesn't it? There's a great clue in that of how how there is no memory of what happened, no true memory, no real memory that is accurate. It's in the retelling, the story is retold afresh. It's always new. So these old stories that we think we tell about our lives, and others tell us their stories with the conviction, you know, that they're true to their life history. But in the retelling, it's absolutely fresh and new. as everything is.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it's something that you can experience.
Yeah,
You
it is.
realize that every time you tell people about something, it depends on where you are at in your
Yeah,
mind at that moment,
yeah,
how it comes out.
yeah,
And so you're
always.
not telling the same story in
No.
reality.
So, so we pretend. There's a great pretense that human beings collude with each other constantly about this ability to tell the truth of the past. It's nonsense.
Yes,
There
I
is
think,
always it's always a brand new story.
yeah, that's actually really accurate, and a very accurate description of what we experience, right?
Yeah,
When we realize that,
yeah.
it becomes really interesting, because then you have the question of where am I at now, because that's causing the past, so to speak,
Well,
or
there's great.
causing the future.
Well, it can seem like that. It's not. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't
you're
know.
right.
I don't have any sense, but it can feel like that. But there is great
Yes,
freedom in noticing, as you say, that when you retell a story about your past, then it's a brand new story,
yeah,
and it really isn't about the past. It's just a new story being told.
right. Yeah, that's a really good observation.
And that's very liberating in itself.
Because we like to draw conclusions from the
Yes.
stories we tell,
Yeah.
but the conclusions never can be right because the stories aren't right either.
Nor are they wrong. That's the liberation.
That's
You
true.
can't
Yeah,
you can't get it right or wrong.
yeah, right. That's quite amazing when we think of how much time we spend communicating, right?
Yeah. 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 And how much anxiety most people have about getting it right,
Yes. Mm,
and fear around getting it wrong.
yep.
Great fear.
Yeah, total fear. So fearful that the body can almost shut down. And some people actually shut down the bodies completely because they're so afraid.
Yeah, can do.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Ah,
you must have in the story gone through a whole lot of such experiences of how powerfully your mind determined your experience at the moment, right?
well, I would have said that. There certainly was a time I would definitely have said that. But do you know now? I have no idea what even speaking about the mind is the um, most abstract concept that we've ever created as human beings. I think this concept of my mind, of mind. There's no mind to be found anywhere. So I never speak about mind anymore.
Okay. Um,
because
so
because it's pure. It's I have to, I just can't find a mind.
mm,
I can't see a mind.
it can one find spirit? Can one find mind? Yeah, you're right. It's a good question.
Well, the thing is, it's not even worth asking for me, because it's a complete impossibility. It's just one thought trying to think of another thought, which is what we call mind.
Mm, okay.
Thoughts can't find thoughts. That's very obvious.
Makes sense. Yeah. Because it's only the thought there at that moment.
Yeah, so all this metacognition, which I did study a little bit. I did train as a psychotherapist at one point, And so for me, mind is just another word for self. You know, there you can't find self, you can't find mind. There's nothing to
Mm.
see. So really, all I'm ever speaking of is the liberation of the quest to find out, to find what mind is, to find what self is, to find what truth is, to find what reality is. All of that can be seen for what it is, which is utterly futile. It will not bring you any closer. There is no possibility of getting closer or further away. And the most liberating of all is that there are no you stop looking to anyone else to help you in your quest. You know that there must be experts, there must be masters, there must be gurus, there must be, you know, great wise ones, where knowledge may be seen for what it is. Empty. Beautifully empty.
Mm.
And it doesn't mean it's not interesting, but it's of no, you know, ultimately it doesn't matter. And freedom from that desire to know, that desperate need to know, is the main motivation here to speak about this.
I think that's a good thing to to be able to enjoy that.
Yeah, and I mean, I often get asked, why do I speak about it? Because I, I often speak of futility and hopelessness and meaninglessness, and it can sound all a bit nihilistic. And the greatest paradox of all, which most of speaking about this is paradoxical, but the biggest paradox is that the absence of meaning and hope and dreams and needs, needs to know, needs to understand, is freedom and peace. A very simple freedom and peace, not the one I was looking for. I hasten to add that, not the freedom and peace that I imagined, because that was just imagination. And most paradoxical of all, it's obvious that it's all love. All of it. All of this.
Beautiful. I think you'll laugh when I tell you about in the Course in Miracles, there's a workbook, and the first lesson says nothing in this room means anything.
Yeah. That's, you don't, well, it is funny that that's in a workbook, because that really, that doesn't require any work. No, that's nice.
I think that fits very well to what you're saying, because
Yes, it does. Now, I say I don't know much about, hardly anything about A Course in Miracles, which I don't. But I, I did. I mean, I left no stone unturned, but a lot of stones I unturned. Course in Miracles being one, and then just flipped the stone back over again. Because I just went, oh no, not that. And I think it was because there was work involved.
yeah, the fun thing is, A Course in Miracles itself claims that if you read the synopsis, which is 1 or 2 sentences, right?
Yeah.
That if you understood that completely, it would be done. You wouldn't even have to read the rest.
Yeah.
Be of no interest to you, because it says something like nothing unreal can be threatened, and so what is real is, or what is true, and there's nothing that can change that. So you're saying that everything drops away, and what remains, what is there when everything drops away, is love. That's basically what A Course in Miracles is saying. So
Well, it's not that far off what I say.
yeah,
The biggest,
it's
no,
not
it's very,
totally
no, it's
different.
very, no, it's very close. The difference would be the understanding part. That would be the
Okay.
difference. Yeah. Because what I'm speaking about requires no understanding. One
Yeah,
of the most,
I think in A Course in Miracles, it has a lot about that you can't understand anything. So, and that it's not about understanding, it's about being. So it's totally, it's really funny because it's such a huge book, right? So
well,
thick.
that does make me laugh, you know, that you, don't get me wrong. I mean, there is a book with my name on it, and it's got, you know, it's got 200 pages, but it's not A Course in Miracles, and it's not a course, and it's not, um, there's no work involved, you know. That's, for me, that's the big difference, I guess. That would be where, I mean, I couldn't dream of giving anyone any work to do.
Yeah, I think it's so funny because the workbook is it's a funny way of calling it, right? Because it's like it's just introducing one thought after the other to
Well,
to remove all the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, right?
yeah,
And it's so, in truth, it should be easy and not work, right, at all.
no, but
But it's called a workbook
yeah,
anyways.
I mean, it's funny. You'd have to work at being, as if there's, as if there's anything else.
Yeah, there is nothing else, and that's what it's telling you in so many words.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's why I turned the stone over, had a look, and went, oh no, there's a lot of work there. Put that stone back.
Yeah, and then it says at the end, it says, forget the whole book and
Yeah,
come to God as you are, right? Or come to beingness as you are. So it's really humorous. It has humor in it.
yeah. After you've done all the work, though. Do the
I,
work
I
first.
guess I guess the author wouldn't care, right? You
No,
could
no, I'm sure.
you could just go to the end and read that and then flip
Mm.
the page like you did. And that would be perfectly fine.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, I'm terrible with books. I always did that. I'd always read. I do. Even with novels, that's why I don't read novels anymore. I'd always read the end before, you know. I'd read the conclusion because that's what I was interested in. So I'd always read the end of books and skip the work.
Yeah, I think that's the fun part about it because the books itself with humor, right? The author sees the whole thing with humor. It doesn't see any necessity for work. It's just for the because the people expect it, I guess, in order to get somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, and that is what self does. Yeah, I must need to do something because I'm at this place, and the whole illusion is that I can get to another place. Well, there isn't another place to get to. It's too obvious.
Um, I was losing the connection for a moment, but I heard you, so I can speak again. Yeah, I think that's really important to think to show how it's not work, right?
No, it's this is what I'm speaking of is the end of working on your life.
it's the end of work, so to speak.
Yes.
You forget to work and it works.
Yeah. Well, it's not. I mean, life isn't a job, but self makes it a job. Full-time employment as me and my life's work.
Yeah, that's what in the Course in Miracles is called the ego, right? The one that thinks it has to do something.
Yeah. But I don't. I mean, I studied psychology quite a bit, and this splitting of self into parts is just it's just making the illusion more elaborate.
That separation doesn't make any sense, and what's so beautiful is that you have experienced it again and again, right? And that's something that we are all experiencing, even if we don't know it at the moment, right?
Yeah. Well, when I speak, I mean, I don't know what I'm speaking about. I mean, that may sound absolutely ridiculous. As I say it, it sounds ridiculous and nonsensical. But the wonder is that there is no need to know, and that all knowing is illusory. And that's what I am, the illusion of knowing.
Cool. Yeah, in A Course in Miracles, it says the whole story or the whole world came about because of forgetting to laugh. So I love your paradoxical statements. It fits perfectly
No,
to the
well,
need to laugh again.
I do like that, yeah. Because if this is seen, there's usually a lot of tears. I say seen, I don't really know. If it is the cosmic joke. The self, the whole illusion of me is a cosmic joke.
Yeah, so I think I'll open the floor if anyone wants to ask some questions or comment. This is a good time to do so.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good.
All you need to do to ask a question or comment is to unmute and then go ahead.
Hello, Tim. Thank you for your words. I'm curious.
Julie.
I'm curious to know. You kind of alluded to things you've done in the past, but
Yeah.
in this state now of of existence that you're in, where you're just being, it sounds like. What is your path? What do you do now to move through your days?
Usual, yeah, normal stuff. I have
do you identify with a career, or how do you identify your?
Oh yeah. So I'm retired. I was able to take early retirement from teaching, so I'm retired. I don't work.
Okay.
I've got two small sons, two small boys, so childcare, quite a lot of that. I've got an elderly mum I care for her. I play golf. I do Zoom meetings. And then
Okay,
the rest of the time is normal stuff, shopping.
Okay. No, it's very helpful because you're talking about this new conception of how you live your life. And you do things Go ahead.
It doesn't feel new.
Okay.
You know, as in, I could say, I mean, again, paradoxically, I could say that life is completely different and exactly the same.
Okay. And when did you have that, you know, when did you figure that out? The paradox of it.
Yeah, I didn't. So with the paradoxical nature of life, there's no working it out. So I didn't work it out, because when life is obviously paradoxical, it's the end of the need to work anything out again. And that's the peace that passes all understanding, which is my favorite phrase from the Bible. Because it's no understanding is necessary at all.
Okay.
So freedom from the need to understand is what I'm always speaking about. Freedom from the one who, if they understood, then they would be okay. It's the peace and the love is that life is okay regardless of whether it's okay or not. Whereas for me, I was always checking, analyzing, assessing where I was in life, how my life was going, where I'd been, where I am, where I wanted to get to. And there's no peace in that, none at all.
Any other comments or questions?
Did that answer your question, Julie? I don't know if it did or not.
I'm not sure either. I'm still thinking about it. It's all very, you know, very deep stuff. I'm a psychotherapist, so I was curious and interested in thinking about, you know, what you were saying about that from this kind of new understanding that you're talking. For me, it's a new understanding.
Yeah.
And I did, you know, for a while I was thinking, well, what about the self? You know, because you know, for the mind, the body, and the spirit, it's like a partnership, and the mind is part of that in this in experiencing emotions and experience sensations. And so I see it as all like an integrated whole, which makes up the self. That's kind of how I see it.
Right. Yeah. Well, the whole notion that what I call myself has these aspects that I could call spiritual, psychological, and physical, and that makes up who I am, is just more, again, making the illusion more elaborate. So the whole illusion is that there is someone that has physical attributes, psychological attributes, and spiritual attributes. It's none of it's true. There isn't really any distinction between physical, psychological, and spiritual. They're all arbitrary concepts. There is just what happens, just as it's appearing, as it seems.
There's an interchange though, because, you know, you're in a human form and I'm in a human form, and there's this communication now going back and forth. So we couldn't be doing that if we weren't in bodies.
Well, no, I mean, it's miraculous, that's for sure. But the illusion is that we know what's going on, Julie. That's what I'm always speaking about. The whole illusion is that we know what's happening, how it's happening. And that we can get closer to understanding.
Right. It's all very, very thought provoking and very deep. And, how me in this situation right now, in this moment, something in me made me sign on to this so that I could have this conversation with you. That's
Well,
like there's a self-directed energy going somewhere.
Yeah, that may be how it feels. Yeah. Well, it's a pleasure to speak to you anyway, Julie.
Yeah, very, very much appreciate this. Thank you. I'll be thinking about it for a while, I'm sure.
Thanks, Julie.
Yeah, there's a few cool things from A Course in Miracles that go into this topic as well. For instance, that we don't know what anything is for. We don't know what is good for us. So we don't know anything, right? That's why we need to let go of that idea that we know anything in order for things to unfold in whatever way they do, right? And experience them as okay, as you say.
Yeah, but the one who would let go, the one who would do the letting go, that's the whole illusion, that I am. The letting go is more work, so I mean, there are plenty of paths of surrender, but there is nothing to surrender. I didn't surrender. I didn't let go.
Okay, how
Really,
did it work for you then?
well,
Or what did it do? Or what happened? Or nothing
well,
happened?
If I was describing what seemed to happen, was that rather than a letting go, it was much more like being taken. that sounds dreadful, and I haven't really spoken to you about this yet, but in the seeming dissolution of the sense of being me, it did feel like life came and took me.
So would you say it was something that came from within you and took over? Or took you, or I don't know what you mean exactly. Maybe
What do I
like
mean?
to describe.
Well, what do I mean? So it felt more and more like I was holding on for dear life, fighting for my life, so that I would survive and stay in control. I'd be the one who had this life, my life. And I didn't go quietly. I went screaming and kicking. And then in the story, when it was over, it was obvious that there was nothing that had been lost. There was nothing to lose.
Right, there was nothing to lose in the first place.
No.
Right. But it seemed like it.
Oh, doesn't it? To me, God,
yeah.
It so does. That is the whole energy of me. The whole energy of self is that I'm in control. I'm the doer. I'm the manager. I'm the thinker. I'm the feeler. It all belongs to me. This life, this what we call life, belongs to me. this illusion of ownership, of personal power. And what I'm speaking of is total powerlessness, which is everything that self fears most. And the wonder, the miracle, is that there is nothing to lose. But it won't feel that way, because I am the whole energy of me is holding on for dear life.
Yeah, one of the things from A Course in Miracles, it says, in defenseless your safety lies. So that sounded a lot like what you were just saying.
It does sound a lot. There's a lot in A Course in Miracles. I'm not sure. Maybe in another life I may have contributed to it. That's me being sarcastic. But there is, yeah. I mean, it is surprising how much in common there is. I mean, the huge difference. I mean, the great difference is that I would never consider that there's anything to work on, because it's just giving self more to do.
Yeah, I'm I'm not sure whether that actually is congruent with the message of A Course in Miracles, that you need to do anything.
No, well, you've already told me the conclusion is that no, there is nothing to do. But then,
Exactly.
of course, you have to get through the first 350 pages. I've guessed the length. But you have to get through those before you get to the bit that says, oh, and by the way, you didn't need to do any of that.
No, actually, it says it at the beginning.
Ah.
By having that statement, nothing unreal exists, and everything that is true or whatever is untouchable. It already says it. There's no work to be done. Right in the beginning, right?
That's
it's just so the work is the illusion.
That's when you so that's a short read.
Yeah, if you just read the few sentences, the two sentences there, it's done, right?
Shut the book.
If that works for you, you can forget all the rest, right? You don't need it.
Well, there is a problem with that. Of course, it won't work for you.
Right, because it doesn't work, because there's no work to be done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's so funny, because it's a paradox in itself, the book, right? Because it says that.
Yeah.
And then you read the book and you're like, oh, it's so wonderful, it's so great, right? And then you come to the end and it says, yeah, drop it all.
Great.
And I bet it says it all in the middle as well, in so many different ways.
Right.
And you just don't, and you just do not get it, right? Because you can't get it, like you said, right?
Well, and I know, I don't think there's many people who listen to me, or maybe there are. I have no idea. That's the wonder. You stop wondering whether people do get what you say or not, because it doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure they believe me when I say I don't know what I'm speaking about. But I do mean that, and I do mean it literally.
Yeah, because how can you know what you're speaking about?
No,
I can't know either. There's no way.
Well, that's all I'm ever saying, because there are very different strands of non-duality, and there's plenty of non-dual paths, with a path, with a journey, with work and working towards.
Yes.
But there is nothing to go towards. There's no one traveling a path, and there's no path to travel.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, because all these stories that are used to describe how not to do anything, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, yeah,
it's so paradoxical. You're using stories to tell yourself that there's nothing to do.
Yeah.
There's nothing going on in the anyways, and all is wonderful the way it is. And then you, like you said, it's like so devastating when you discovered that everything was fine the way it is, right? Because you
I
were
know
always so intent on changing things, right?
absolutely, yeah. And it does leave you, I mean, it can be so disconcerting because it is very, very obvious that all the motivation, what you called motivation, was moving towards what you wanted, making this better, making my life work. And without that, if that motivation stops appearing, then the emptiness can feel overwhelming. And it did feel overwhelming here for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And the emptiness was really the lack of all the anxiety, all the thoughts of what I should be doing. The absence of that, there was just this immense space, life incredibly spacious.
Yeah. So in the story, how did that come about? Did you so you were in this experience of emptiness, and
Yeah,
and then you were still having your everyday stuff like going shopping and so on going on.
I during that period I did very little then.
Okay. So some of that you did as little as possible, probably.
Yeah, because it just well, yeah, even motivation, even for I mean, I was still functioning. It to other people, it looked like depression. I some my friends and family would have thought I was depressed, but
Mm-hmm.
it never felt like depression because I know how depression feels, and it was nothing like that. There was no fear involved at all.
Yeah, because depression has a lot of fear in it, right?
Yeah, there's nothing to fear from nothing.
Yeah. If nothing that is unreal exists in truth, there's nothing to fear at all, because what is right.
Yeah, and well, the emptiness. I mean, there is still. I mean, there's just practically as a human being, there's physical fears. Don't step out in front of a truck. As somebody said, yeah, but what about if you stepped out in front of a truck? And I went, yeah, but I wouldn't do that. I'm
So
not
yeah,
stupid.
so you still had a practical
Yeah, of course.
practical sense of how to move around in the story, right?
Yeah, well, everything is what we call my doing. Every aspect of that, thinking, planning, feeling, and actions. The reality is they all happen absolutely naturally. With or without the illusion that I am doing it, that I am the doer, I am the thinker, I'm the feeler, I'm the lover.
Yeah, because one hears stories about people who have these experiences and then are not able to function for a while at all in life. And it
Yeah,
sounds
that
like that
wouldn't,
didn't happen to you, or
no.
didn't happen in the story that goes with your name, right?
Well, I mean, you could say it did happen to an extent. I mean, I couldn't go to work, so I didn't, yeah. So you could say to an extent that happened.
Yeah,
Again, none of that happened.
right.
if I if
It
I don't
didn't
tell
really happen. Yeah,
if I don't tell a story about it, where is it? That's all. It's that
right.
simple. Unless we tell stories about the past, there's no past. Unless we tell stories about the future, there is no future. And the past
Right.
and the future are no more than those stories. If that is undeniably obvious, then you are left with what we're speaking of, which can't be spoken of. It's everything. There is nothing outside. There's nothing inside. There's no traveling. There's no movement. And yet movement appears. Thinking appears.
Yeah, that is a fascinating thing, that everything actually happens while in this. Yeah, you don't know where it's coming from, you don't know why, and it's just is, right?
Yeah. Well, the most incredible, like everything else, is it's that you can say that it's all that there is, but it's all that there isn't as well. So it's not even what isn't excluded. This is all and nothing, empty and full.
Yeah, I think that's a description that comes up in various traditions. This idea of
Yeah,
emptiness and fullness as being
it
one
does.
and the
Yeah,
same.
yeah. It comes up. It's in Zen. It's in Advaita Hinduism.
Yeah,
It's in a number of Chinese traditions as well,
yeah,
and the whole paradoxical nature of
right.
life. That's in all traditions, isn't it? Pretty much.
Yeah, I believe so too. Yeah,
And really, all the paradoxical nature is just saying you can just there's you can pretend you're getting closer. You can pretend you've got your understanding has got deeper. You've become wiser, much more knowledgeable. You're almost at the stage where you're a master, but it's complete delusion, and there's no freedom in that. The freedom is in that there are no masters. There has never been any masters. There could be no masters. That's the freedom. That's
that's beautiful.
liberation.
Yeah, and of course, in Miracles, it speaks about equality.
Yeah,
All are equal,
yeah.
not in the sense that there is no difference, right? Basically, we're all
No,
one, right?
well, the wonder, I mean, the greatest wonderful paradox is that, of course, human beings are absolutely equal in their being human,
Yeah.
and every single one is utterly unique.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, how wonderful is that? I mean,
Yeah.
this is just it's unimaginably loving.
Yeah. It's amazing, and this being equal and at the same time being unique, and yet once you let go of all of that,
Yeah, it's
that doesn't
again that
make any, or not, like, I don't know how to put it. Once it's gone, right? It's gone, right?
it's
And then it unfolds on its own. This uniqueness remains, but it doesn't feel unique anymore, right?
no, no, that's really quite accurate. Yeah. So you, the liberation is what you could say for the character of the human being, the uniqueness of the human being, to be liberated from the fear of that uniqueness. Because when it's my uniqueness, I can only be fearful of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm afraid the uniqueness won't be quite special enough. You know, my specialness.
Yeah.
Freedom from the possibility of being a special one is
Yes.
is the peace and the love.
Yes, and that's exactly also one of the last things that A Course in Miracles says. Just to laugh one more time.
Because maybe that's Wanako, maybe that's I should be speaking, you know, for A Course in Miracles, because you get a much bigger following than I do.
Who knows? Anyways.
I'm joking. I don't think that
Maybe
have
you
me.
have a huge following.
No, what I mean
and
is,
it doesn't matter to you, right?
a Course in Miracles. I didn't mean you personally, Wanako. I meant A Course in Miracles, you know, generally.
Yeah,
It's quite a big thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think non-duality is also a big thing. And
yeah, it seems to be getting a bit
according
bigger.
to many in A Course in Miracles, A Course in Miracles is also radical non-duality or total non-duality. So it's just other words, other diction.
Well,
because
I
it
mean,
also speaks about the about specialness and equality, right, as being the opposite of each other, right? How specialness makes you unhappy.
Yeah,
this
without
idea
doubt.
of being special.
Well, I'm
and
never
you were
special.
speaking about that. So,
yeah. Well, I can never be special enough, can I? You know, that's self can't. No matter how special, you know, there's plenty of stories how Olympic gold medalists come back from winning their gold medal, and of course they fall into despair.
Yeah, because they think they're special, right?
Absolutely.
And specialness is the
there's
best
nothing worse.
way to be unhappy, right?
Without
the
a doubt.
idea that you're special.
Yeah. It's a guarantee. It's a guarantee for unhappiness.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. The guarantee of unhappiness.
It's a pretty surefire bet, that one.
Yeah. Just think you're special, and at the same moment you will know you're unhappy. Yeah.
Of course, the nature of self is that, and you know, there's so many selves who have made their specialness how faulty they are, how damaged they are, how how what a bad person they are. Well, self will take that as specialness all day long.
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether it's specialness in the idea that you're better than everyone else, or that you're worse than everyone else, or that you're alone in the world. It doesn't matter what specialness argument is being used. You're unhappy if you're arguing that you're special.
Self will take any of that.
Yeah. And of course, in Miracles would say ego, but it also says that we made the ego, so for that purpose, to propagate separation.
Who did that? Who made the ego?
Exactly. That's the next question.
Yeah.
Because the ego isn't real, right?
Right. Well,
and yet we experience as if it were real, because it's a thought. It's a thought, right?
I mean, I don't understand why we use the word ego rather than me or self.
Right.
Because
if
you ask, you know, anybody at all, non-spiritual person, just, you know, you're in the pub and you're having a chat with someone, everyone knows what me means.
Yes.
This sense of being me.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's not in doubt.
Right.
This doubtless
thinks that
so to speak about ego as, you know, a part of self, but then there's another part of self that is not ego. I just think it's just
actually it doesn't
it's making
say,
a division.
It doesn't say that ego is real. It's
Right.
just a description of a thought system
Right.
that is
Hmm.
actually an illusion. It doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense. And
Right.
this thought system has been given power because of our thinking it, right? Because
Right.
of thinking it, not because it's real.
Yeah.
And so yeah,
But
so
but
just like
but
you say, the character isn't real either, right?
no, there isn't a character, but there
Yeah.
but there are characteristics that appear. Characteristic way of responding, reacting,
Yes.
but they're just reactions.
Right. Yeah.
Like there's angry dogs and there's playful dogs.
Yes. Yeah,
It's
I love
it,
this. We're laughing a lot. I like it.
it's quite like being a dog, but a human dog.
Hmm.
Uh,
So, if anyone would like to comment or ask questions, I will. You're welcome to now. Otherwise, Tim and I will continue having our conversation. Seeming conversation, if we want to use the non-dual term, right?
no, you don't get into that. I don't buy that.
Oh, you don't? Okay, good.
No, no. Oh
Because
well,
I've heard that
otherwise,
used.
otherwise, you know, otherwise, that makes conversations far too stilted. It's not.
Okay, good. That makes it
There's
easier for
the
us.
yeah, I have no sense that you have to use certain language.
Okay,
Not at all.
wonderful. Yeah,
Where would the
so you,
freedom be in that, Wanaka?
yeah, it feels a little, like you said, it feels stilted, right? To always have to say seeming or
No.
whatever
Well,
before you say something. Yeah,
apparently is the most popular word.
yeah,
So you have to say apparently after you've said every
right,
sentence.
right, true,
But of course you don't need to because it's already apparent.
right.
Whether you say it or not, it makes no odds.
Yeah, so you spoke about having written books, and I know that you describe yourself as a speaker, and I know that you speak a lot and share a lot. Um,
Yeah.
how does this come about? Because it I have the feeling that you're really sharing a deep message of remembering who yeah, I don't know, who we are, or better said, you're remembering to allow love to shine, right? No matter whether the word is helpful or not, right? But just to be, right? And you're
Well,
sharing this with everyone who's interested, right? If
yeah.
they
I
want
mean,
to
I'd
listen.
I'd be. You have to be careful speaking this message. You should only talk to people who ask you. Don't share it with those who don't want to hear. Fortunately, most selves can't hear this. It goes straight through. It goes in one ear and out the other, as my dad would say.
That's a
And
good one.
doesn't touch the size. But there are selves who will take be affronted at, at the merest suggestion that they're non-existent as a self, and that they're not in control, because it is a direct threat if it's heard to some selves. But I love speaking to those with whom it resonates, who have a have the ears to hear.
Yeah, for me, it's uplifting to know that I'm not special, right? And and to
That's
get clearer and clearer about that, because I've lived a life of believing that I'm special,
yeah,
right? A
yeah,
story of
yeah,
believing that I'm special so
yeah.
long, and that still is coming up every day, right? And
Right.
so but I do feel ever more relieved the more I allow myself to let go of that idea that I'm
Yeah.
special, and remembering that I'm equal rather than special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know, I mean, it's interesting. You used the word remembering a few times, and
Yes, I did.
it's much more like forgetting.
Yeah. I think
Forgetting that
that's,
forgetting that you're special. It's like it can be a vague memory. There's a vague
yes.
memory of the specialness, but that's all it is. It's no
Yeah.
more than that. And it can still appear like a vague sense of, oh yeah, my specialness.
Mm,
But really, I'm speaking of a forgetting.
yes. I think that's cool. In A Course in Miracles, they also speak of that to remember, you need to forget.
Yeah, but the thing is about the remembering, there's nothing that's required to be remembered.
Yeah, it's there, right?
Absolutely. So it requires no remembering.
Exactly.
This,
So that's why this
this,
paradox has to be there, right?
this is all
In order
there is.
to, yeah, in
Whether
order to
whether there's a
remember,
sense of
you have to forget.
well, remembering is just the past, and the past is only here in the remembering, isn't it?
It's actually saying that you can only remember the present because
Well,
there
yeah,
is no past or future in
exactly.
truth. So
Absolutely.
that's why in order to remember the present, you have to forget the past and the future, right?
And then there's and then there's absolutely no requirement to remember.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Because there
already
is.
it's already being.
Yeah, it's all there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool. So it's always saying there's no work to be done, right? In so many different words.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
Apart apart from the workbook.
I think it's so funny that it's called the workbook in the
Oh,
first
me
place, right?
too. Me too.
Because
I mean,
there's no work to be done and it's called the
it,
workbook.
who do you who wrote it? I am interested. So, just on
Yeah,
who
okay.
wrote the book?
It's a fun story. The two people who's who wrote the book were two psychologists,
Ah, now that makes sense.
and and they were in a situation where at work there was constant infighting and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And one of them said there must be a better way. And the
Yeah.
other person who was also fighting with them, or they were all fighting a lot, right, or in discussions or whatever,
Hmm.
whatnot, what everyone can know from the workplace, right? Who works.
Yeah.
Um, they She said, I'm gonna help you find that other way. And then she started having experiences, and then she got something she calls inner dictation. And that's where the course came from,
Right.
where A Course in Miracles came from this experience of inner dictation.
Yeah.
And she would write it in a shorthand, and the other man, Bill Thetford, would type it down when
Oh
she
yeah.
read it to him.
Right.
So they were supporting each other in this process. And it was all behind closed doors for a long time. It was
Mm.
just so they were not sharing it with anyone for a long time.
Right.
And they were,
Oh yeah, that's
and they,
interesting.
and she was even thinking that, she was often doubting whether it was sane or not, right? What she was getting there.
Yeah.
And, but and he said, just if it says to write it down, take note, right, then do so, right? And we can think of whether it's sane or whether it's useful or not afterwards, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the working thing, was to just see what comes out, right? And then they figured out that it was very um yeah, it was something they could relate to in one way, and in another way they were in opposition to, right?
Right.
So
Oh
it
yeah.
was a very amazing thing, but the purpose of it was to find another way of getting
Right.
along with each other, with the various people, right?
Yeah.
And that's a very powerful purpose, right? To want to get along with each other.
Well,
And we know how characters love to clash, right?
well, In the absence of that specialness, it's incredibly easy.
Exactly. And I think that's what a course, the Course in Miracles is
Now
also
that doesn't
talking
mean that
about.
it's always harmonious and there aren't arguments and anger doesn't appear and arguments don't, but there's a harmony to that that
Mm,
is beyond understanding. It doesn't mean it's okay all the time, but the trouble with the word harmony or harmonious, it sounds like there would never be an argument. Well, there is a harmony that is all inclusive, a peace
mm,
that doesn't exclude arguing, anger, that doesn't
yeah,
deny anything. Doesn't deny anything. That's what
right.
we're speaking of.
Yeah, it doesn't get in the way of
No,
being.
because the thing that's in the way always in a relationship is me.
Right. Yeah, especially me.
And my needs and my desires of how this relationship should be.
Exactly. It's my
Whether,
judgments that
yeah,
are getting in the way of getting along, right?
yeah.
And so
Because
that's
real
why.
because really there aren't any relationships.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's also the A Course in Miracles has a whole section. It speaks about the special relationship versus the holy relationship.
Right.
That's how it describes the two different types
Yeah.
of, and of course the special relationship doesn't work, right? At least
No.
it's yeah, it just doesn't work. And the holy relationship is completely based on something totally different, on something that we really can depend upon, right?
You see, I wouldn't say that.
Well, you can depend on,
This
um
is
how do you put it?
yeah, how do I put
um
it?
you
Well,
say,
the thing
you
is,
speak of there being a groundedness that goes beyond all
well,
judgments.
the groundedness is when there's no ground.
Right.
And there's nothing more paradoxical than the ground. The ground is empty. The
Yes.
ground, the ground is absent, and it's that emptiness, that space
Hmm.
that that is the ground of being, you could say. But it isn't a
Yes.
ground that I can stand on.
Okay, yeah, I like that. Yeah, but it's just like all the other things. It's the opposite of what
Yeah,
one would think it is.
it is.
And
Yeah,
that's what A Course in Miracles is also saying. It's the opposite of what the world would think.
it's true. Yeah.
Turns everything up, back upright, right? It says the way the world sees things is exactly the wrong way around, right?
Yeah. The difference would be, you see,
Diametrically different.
just just in language, I just never say the world. The world's completely indifferent. The world isn't seeing anything. There's no world that's seeing anything.
Yes.
It's me. It's me. It's me.
Yes.
It's I. It's I that sees the world from my point of view, from
Mm,
a
yes.
self-centric, egocentric, if you like. I am the center of the universe. Everything revolves around me. Everything is in relation to me.
Yeah.
That's the illusion.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Wow. There's a lot of yeah. I think we're all trying to point to something. The language is really difficult to find, huh? The right
Yeah.
language to
Well,
describe what
there is no
you're
the
speaking of, and so on.
I
Wow.
find what I find the most freeing is that it is absolutely obvious that there would be no way of getting this right. There is no right way of speaking about this. The
Exactly.
words, the
Good.
words are utterly inadequate, wholly, completely futile, and yet
Yes.
there is a joy and a love that wants to speak about this.
Yes.
But knowing that it can't be spoken correctly is what allows it to be spoken.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been a pleasure to do this. Really, it has. And hasn't it been great how much common ground there is? It is interesting.
Yeah, it is indeed.
Yeah.
Well, I'll open the floor one more time and then we can start wrapping up things, right?
Yeah, sure.
So anyone who would like to comment or ask questions, please do so. And then once we've had that question and answer or comment session, Tim and I will wrap things up, okay? Okay, then I guess it's up to us, Tim. So, is there?
Well, I'm
And maybe
happy
you would
to.
like to share something as a some statements that you'd like us to think about.
No,
No. Okay.
I never have that.
Okay. Perfect. Then I'll go to the next thing that I always ask.
Yeah.
How can people find you or hear about you or listen to
Yeah,
your
sure.
what you
So,
share, and how can they find your book, and how can they contact you
yeah.
personally?
So my book is This Deafening Silence, which you can find on Amazon. This Deafening Silence by Tim Cliss. And that's, you can get a paperback hard copy, and you can get that as a Kindle. And I've got a website, timclissthis.com, which is beautiful. If you haven't had a look at it, it's worth looking at. And on the website, there's all my links to what meetings. I have a meeting every Thursday at 7 p.m. British time. And I've got a retreat coming up, online retreat for a weekend, 20th and 21st of November. And there's YouTube channel, but you can look at all my meetings are recorded, so there's they're on my website or my YouTube channel.
Wonderful. Yeah. Then I would like to thank everyone for being here, and I would like to ask you all to share about the podcast so more people can find it, and please review it on whichever podcast platform you listen to it on, so that more people find it as well. And I'd like to thank you all for being here, and hopefully you will join me and other guests when we have the next recording. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Wanako. It was a pleasure. Yeah, and good luck with your podcast. And you've made it. You're very good at it. It was really lovely.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot, and
I haven't done this
really
before, by the way, because I'm always looking at a face, so it's got quite a different feel about it, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
I'm happy we did this, and we took the time
Yeah.
to go very deep. And yeah, and I wish you all the best with all your sharing and everything you do or don't do,
Yeah.
whatever we want to
Yeah.
call it.
Thanks, you too.
And yeah, we can keep in touch, of course.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we will. Yeah.
Okay, then till next time.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, everyone.